Are we the baddies?
I drink your
Hey, this is Box Office Baddies coming to you from a balcony in beautiful Koreatown, Los Angeles. My name is Sean.
My name's Nick, and this is our very first episode.
Yep.
Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite movies ever growing up, Star Wars Episode 1. I grew up with this movie, like I said.
Weird pick.
Yep, good pick. And I had all the merch, I had all the games, I had all the toys.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, I respect the hustle in terms of him waiting X amount of years to finally make the film, catch up with the CGI, all the technology, but boy did he forget how to write a script in that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the strongest film, pound for pound, I would say, but the level of nostalgia I have growing up with the film makes me really love it, and I think a lot of people can identify with that. So
let's get into why you like this movie.
Okay, so one of the first reasons I really liked the movie was the CGI. I think the CGI was really groundbreaking in the film. Jar Jar Binks is the first CGI character in a movie. You know, like movies like Avatar, where they have all these huge crowds, like hundreds of CGI characters. It all started with that first person on screen.
Yeah, and
I thought that was really interesting about the film.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, definitely a feat in terms of first CGI character, but Jar Jar seemed to me to be a very unnecessary part of the plot. I think in terms of what they were trying to do with him, I understand, but he seemed very useless to me as a character. And the reason why I say this is just the fact that I think they brought him in for comedic value, and he was owed a debt by Qui-Gon Jinn, correct?
Yeah.
And basically he owed him his life, and I'm not even sure why they picked him up, or why Qui-Gon Jinn wasn't just you know what, it's fine, I saved your life, but you're pretty useless. And so they bring him out on the mission maybe to help them for some reason.
Well,
and
yeah, the reason that that Qui-Gon and Jar Jar met in the first place was because they were on the battlefield, right? They ducked under the droid tank type of vehicle.
Yeah.
And they were on top of each other. Qui-Gon was protecting him, and then
Sure.
he repaid his debt to him by saving his life by bringing him to the city where his people live, which was very strange when they dive into a puddle and then they're suddenly in a new world. But
yeah, I guess they tied it in the story, but I think one of the biggest things that cracked me up was just the idea that I wasn't cracking up by Jar Jar Binks. I felt like he wasn't very funny where they wanted him to be funny. Also, I'm just not really sure where they were going with the accents with this film. It seems a little bit racist to me. I could touch a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
But I for example, there's this guy who plays one of the main guys. Do you remember his name? He was one of the guys that sounded very Asian, I suppose.
Yes, it was the Senate leader or something for the Empire that was in the Star Command spaceship.
Yeah.
That was kind of alien looking, but the one that had the Asian accent.
Okay, so here's the thing. So I did a little more digging on this guy, and what really cracked me up was, well, first off, just the idea that who makes the decisions of certain characters in the film based on certain races of alien races. Who decides, oh, this guy's gonna be very Jamaican, or let's make this guy very
That'd be George.
very angry Asian man. So I did some digging. And this Senate leader character was played by a guy named Silas Carso, and he could not be more of a white guy. So it's pretty cool. You're not getting away with that anymore. You know what I'm saying?
That one is a bygone.
Very
era.
2001.
Yeah, pre-2000. So we'll let it slide in this case. But another thing I really liked about the movie was, wow, you hear that rip-roaring engine. And we're out here on the balcony in K-Town. It's a little bit of background noise here, but
that's
it's
what we're
fun.
all about here, you baddies.
We're out here. And another thing I really liked about the film was Ewan McGregor's rat tail. I feel like it was...
Did you like it, or was it just funny to you?
I feel like I loved it, but the longer the film went, the longer the rat tail got, and then I started to resent it.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was a fun tidbit of the film, that they had a kind of butt rock type, I feel like a bass player in a butt rock band would have that kind of...
Do you want to describe to the listeners what butt rock is?
Butt rock is any sort of music that came out in the early 2000s that is rock, that has synthesizers and solos.
Very basic guitar.
Think Creed, Hinder, who else?
Fucking Alice in Chains.
Yep, Alice in Chains that's more shoegaze butt rock, but we'll get into
Just
that.
my shit.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
That's funny. All right, what did you like about it?
Well, going back full circle to the character Obi-Wan, I actually liked Ewan McGregor's interpretation of him, although I think he could have used a lot more lines in that movie. I think that he's great in just about everything he does, and he seemed very believable to me as that character. In the later Star Wars Episode 2 and especially 3, he has like the biggest role, but I think it was just more of like an introduction type role for him in this first one.
Yeah, I liked Ewan McGregor a lot in it, and I thought that the two best actors in the modern Star Wars films, I would say, are Ewan and Liam Neeson, but Liam Neeson's performance just wasn't as good as Ewan's, I would say.
Pretty good.
It was good, but I thought it was a little like mute and a little like restrained, kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like where I'm so used to Liam being like I will find you, I will kill you.
Yeah, can you imagine if they did like a crossover to Taken?
Yeah,
even though it hadn't been made yet.
I loved about in the Ted movies they did that, like the scene where it was like they had the interplay from Taken.
Yeah.
Inside of Ted, it was like one of the sequels.
Yeah.
Those are
Poor Liam. I feel like
films.
he's really sucked into Taken. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a good role though. I like it.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Or what's the one with it's almost like Snakes on a Plane, but it's with Liam Neeson. It's like Plane or something.
Is it the one with the wolves where he's like battling wolves with like broken
that one's
shooter
incredible.
like shot glass things on his knuckles?
Yeah, that's
The Gray.
The Gray
You ever see
is
that?
incredible. Yeah, that'd be a good one. We could do that in an episode.
Yeah, so back to Star Wars. I guess Ewan McGregor I think did a great job, and sadly wasn't enough to save this one. I think looking back, it was interesting for me to watch this movie again because when I was very young, I loved it, and I think I wanted to rewatch it for some sort of nostalgic value, and I think it did hit that in some scenarios. But now that I'm an adult watching it, I realized how awkward this like panning back and forth from this like childish approach where you can tell that they were making it to sell merchandise to kids, which we all bought into in the early 2000s, but then they would switch it to this adult scenario in the Star Wars film, so the older generation would be more intrigued, and it would just switch right to a talk about like trade in the Empire or something, and it was just like kind of like hard to understand, especially right after the very innocent pod race with Anakin. It just it seemed like a very weird transition to me.
Yeah, the 10 to 15 minute Senate debate scenes are particularly brutal, as much as I like the movie. But I think one thing that we can both agree on that's great about the movie is the score. Like, obviously, John Williams.
That man can do no wrong.
Yeah, one of the most incredible composers, in film. I love all of his scores, and I think that was obviously just something we should touch on is great, but I thought the comedy did fall pretty flat. Like the 3PO, my parts are showing. Like, that one made me cringe really hard.
He's always been pretty butt rock, though. Let's be fair. You know what I mean?
In some way, I mean, he does have like the material of his skin is like kind of butt rock.
A little bit, yeah.
That's like some stuff you would find on like some terrible graphic design on a butt rock album.
For sure.
From like the late 90s. Some reflective material.
Absolutely.
All right, what did you dislike?
Okay, so I think I did love the haircuts of both Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. I feel like they both look like they could be some forwards for PSG in the soccer league over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
little Ibrahimovic, maybe.
Yep. I think Darth Maul was really good.
I think he might be one of the best villains in like the whole, not even just the new adaptations, but I think just in the whole series in general.
Yeah, he's really dark and he doesn't say much. And I thought that, like, the first 3 films are very lightweight in terms of like there's not like really dark moments and there's not like really high moments. It's all kind of like sanitized.
Yeah.
But the second franchise 1, 2, and 3 like go a lot darker, especially like episode 3.
For sure.
It gets I like that he embraced that, but I wish that he like didn't become this like monolith that was like so out of touch with Hollywood
For sure.
that like he kind of ruined the franchise. But I'm glad there's at least more movies. Like people like to complain about there's more. Like they need to stop making Star Wars films, but it's like it's not hurting you. You don't have to watch them. And for the people that like it and are obsessed with it, it's just more.
Well, think
more
about
stuff,
me
you know?
as a little kid who, watching this movie now, I didn't like it at all. But at the time, it was like very indicative of my childhood.
Yeah.
You know, so I think for that it's important. And who's to say the new Star Wars films aren't doing the same thing? You know, even though it's a huge money grab every time, and it's always going to be. I think, I don't know, just the fact of them keeping them going, kids are happy. I mean, I guess it's kind of a win-win for both the production of the film and whoever's getting paid and the little kids who have a huge imagination. So that's something to be a little bright spot for sure.
Yeah, another thing versus, you know, the first trilogy versus the second that really bugged me was the introduction of the whole idea of midi-chlorians. So just to refresh your memory on that, it was...
Isn't that the thing that's like helping cure coronavirus?
No, that would be nice.
Hydrochloroquine. Okay. Totally different thing.
But
Good bit.
but sad bit. Midi-chlorians are essentially the DNA component or some sort of biological trait that they link to being a Jedi.
Yeah.
And it's pretty bullshit in my eyes because the first franchise, the first trilogy rather, is all about, you know, like the meta side of the Force, but then they go and try to make it physical in the first trilogy, which I thought was like kind of corny. It kind of harks back to the like Han shot first thing. Do you know like about that at all?
Mm-mm.
So like in the first 77 Star Wars film,
Yes, I do remember.
yeah, there's like a scene where it's like Greedo and Han in that bar, and they're sitting kind of like us, like across the table.
Sure.
And he's like, they're basically like holding him up, like, give me my money. But in the original, Han shoots Greedo first, and then he falls over, and then they like take off.
Uh-huh.
But in like 99 or somewhere in the 90s, they put out this like new remastered digital version, and they changed scenes from the original to change it so that Greedo would shoot first, because he was trying to like make it more family friendly to where like Han wouldn't shoot first. But if you go to like Star Wars conventions and all that, there are people walking around with like shirts that say Han shot first and like all this stuff because
Fucking nerds.
But I identify with it somewhat because I feel like George Lucas kind of does this revisionist thing with his films where, not his films, just Star Wars, I think particularly, because it's so big. But on that same release, the remastered version where he changed the Han and Greedo scene, he also changed the CGI
of Jabba, right?
Yeah, of Jabba. And also in episode 1, the original that came out in 99, it's a puppet that's Yoda.
Yeah.
But then he put out, you know, like all these money grab things where it's every 5 years it's a new box set and like the whole thing. But on that next version after the 99 release, it was CGI. They switch it. So he loves to just go back and change things, and I think like the real fanboys of Star Wars love the original for what it is.
I actually, to be honest, the more I think about that, I think the more I can agree with the nerds. Is something to like kind of compare it to is if you look back in like 70s, 80s horror, specifically 80s horror, a big part of why it's so loved for people who love film is its use of practical effects, you know, like things like creating the gore, creating like the fleshy, like gross monsters. And there's something like really cool and unique about that. It's like, maybe it's a little campy or cheesy, but I mean, if you look at Star Wars, I think that's kind of the reason why it was so loved. Is like, as it aged, it's a little campy, but it's like super fun. So, you know, like comparing that to like horror films, it's like the same kind of thing. You know, it's like they're not going back and changing like The Evil Dead and adding CGI to the old one, because it's just, that's kind of ridiculous. So it's like, while I can respect George Lucas's want to just keep like the series fresh for like everyone, at a certain point it's just kind of like people are going to understand if it looks a certain way. Like, you don't want to bastardize it too much, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
totally. I think another thing that was fun in the film was I was waiting the whole time for the Wilhelm Scream, which is like the crazy, like, ah!
I think you missed it. I heard that, right?
Yeah, but Sean pointed out, but I was waiting for it the entire time. It's this scream that I think sound editors use, kind of, it's almost like a meme before memes existed.
Sure.
To where like in the industry or anyone that's doing it, anytime you put that scream in there, it's you know that they're doing it intentionally.
It's like a subtle nod to the film industry, kind of.
Yeah, but it's just I love whenever those pop up in there.
Totally.
But I mean, can we just talk about the burning of Qui-Gon Jinn for a moment? Like how heavy that was at the end.
Oh man,
they're just roasting his body.
I think you forget like how like culty like the whole Jedi thing is, you know, because it's like you watch all the Star Wars movies and you realize that like it is just like a big religion, really. Like, but you know, in real life, religion's fake, and in this movie, it's evidence of it being real. You know what I mean? So it's you kind of forget like how culty like it can be, as far as like, you know, like Qui-Gon Jinn like burning on a spit while like all his loved ones are just sitting there and like just being like
meat tornado with Qui-Gon Jinn on it.
Bye, Qui-Gon. No, Qui-Gon. Not now. But yeah, no, it's definitely like pretty trippy, but that's always been one of the things I like loved about like his like vision for the film throughout all of them is like I like that it's like it's in a way it's almost like this battle between like science and like faith in a way, you know, and it's like I've been watching this show called Raised by Wolves recently, and it's that same kind of thing, but with Ridley Scott with this new series, and I think it's like super interesting, you know, because it's very indicative of like real life, and like whether or not like faith or science comes out on top, it's like I think there's some great commentary to be said about that kind of concept, you know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah, that's great. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, so it's really like trippy to me. I never thought about this as a young kid just because every actor was new to me, but the cast is like pretty like star-studded, you know. Granted, some of them are younger, but like no, you have
nowadays they are,
yeah, you have like Natalie Portman playing Padme and the Queen, right?
Yeah, that was interesting because I didn't put it all together because it'd been a while since I've seen the movie, but apparently in the film it's not distinguished that it's distinguished initially in the film that they're two different characters. Yeah. But there's a reveal in the end in that ceremony where Padme is the queen, so she was kind of doing double duty.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So then that's why it ends up, I think, becoming Anakin dating her as like Padme. I'm still honestly a little bit confused by the movie. It's more nostalgia for me rather than understanding.
Yeah.
But
so don't quote Nick on that.
Yeah. I mean, we're out here. Cheers me, brother. First episode.
Jesus.
We're here.
I know. A little bit nervy before this one, huh?
Yeah, we were a little bit nervous, but I'm really excited for this podcast.
For sure. Yeah, let me just... Going back to the cast real quick before we head out. So you have Natalie Portman playing debatably two parts in this one. You have Ewan McGregor, who is, I think, incredibly underrated in most movies. And he, like, you know, he's been in, like, Trainspotting 2, like
so
some other films. So hip, dude. Jesus. And he's like, you know what, dude, like, let's give the people what they want. Let's go mainstream, baby.
Yeah.
Let's hit it. But you have him, you have Liam Neeson, Samuel L. made an appearance.
Yep.
We love to see a Mace Windu in there.
Yep, Mace Windu.
And yeah, like just a couple other people too, but it's hilarious how good the cast was. And I think I attribute it back to George Lucas forgetting over 40 years how to write a script, but the acting was really flat and weird.
Yeah.
It almost seems like when you hear like a singer and it's like, you're not like, I know you can sing, but Jesus Christ, you're flat today. That's like what the whole thing felt like to me. A lot of awkward dialogue back and forth.
I think that
hard to watch.
I think this gets to the point of George Lucas kind of getting outside of what he was originally trying to fight against, which is the big Hollywood mogul.
Yeah.
And I think in the first few films, he was smart in the 70s to insist to like producers and all this for the film that they use unknown actors.
Yeah.
And because he felt like it would be easier to establish characters. But I think he got so caught up in being that giant Hollywood mogul that he felt, oh, let's just cast all these stars in the film and make it work. But I think because it's such a big like legacy and big name that it's hard for these big name actors that we know from prior roles to get into Star Wars where we're trying to establish new characters.
Totally.
So I think that was a big mistake by him. But I think because of my nostalgic view of the film, like growing up as a kid, like I was interviewed as a kid by my dad in character as Anakin Skywalker with the helmet on, and I was so obsessed with Star Wars. Like it was game over. It didn't matter about the first trilogy. Me and my dad, honestly, I bonded a lot over it. That's one thing that I think why I love it so much is because me and my dad are really close. We both love Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I, admittedly, a little biased on this film, but for me, I would overall rate it a good film. It's worth a watch. It's not the best Star Wars movie, but it's definitely a good film in my opinion.
If you do want to watch the worst Star Wars film, go ahead and go to episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, I would say Attack of the Clones is pretty up there.
We get to see what's his name, Hayden Christensen, right?
Yeah.
Come in as older Anakin, and boy does he do a bad job. So
what's your? So I said it's worth a watch. It's pretty good. What's your final take
I think
on
from like your bias, like which I can like empathize with. I think it is like entertaining. I think it's if you watch it through a lens of nostalgia and like coming in it with like a head where like this is like fun, it's Star Wars, that's always what it's been about, then I think that like no matter what you're gonna find some enjoyment out of it. But I would say if you are super snobby or you aren't snobby and you haven't seen the movie back in the day and you just watch it now, I think that you would probably be like, what is this garbage? Like this is pretty bad. So I think overall it's like a very, very okay movie with some bright spots, but I probably wouldn't watch it again, to be honest with you.
No, I respect that. That's what this podcast is about. We're just teeing up these different movies, really different perspectives, but I'm really excited that we got the first episode done. We made it. Take a deep breath, But we're excited to do more episodes, and, if you guys want to suggest any movies to us, feel free to link on our IGs. I'm at Nickelback with an H. Sean,
and I am at Pixel Snack.
You got anything to say, Sean?
No, I just say please subscribe, check us out on Spotify, and just be a baddie.
Yeah. We'll see you later, baddies.